We are live and rolling. Welcome, everybody. This is the Sandler free educational webinar on will AI tools replace salespeople? Our take is really no, but salespeople that use AI and leverage these tools are going to have a massive advantage over those that don't. And we're going to have a full discussion about AI and sales, a little bit of a roundtable discussion. We want you to participate as well in the chat. So if you can chime in as much as possible whenever we put one of these questions up here on the screen. Share your thoughts because we want to learn from you. That's one of the things we do here at Sandler is we collect best practices from just all around the world. We have over 200 locations. We're in like 27 different countries and 15 languages, and we're constantly helping thousands and tens of thousands of salespeople grow, overcome challenges, and learn from all of you. So we want to do that today here as well. A couple of other upfront contracts before I introduce our panelists. This is, as any Sandler webinar, a personal growth process. So when we're talking about leveraging AI in sales, there's a couple of things that we can do here in an hour. We can give you a lot of awareness about things that you need to think about and maybe consider in your sales process. We can give you a little bit of knowledge about what we have and some of the tools that we're aware of and how to use them in your sales process. We're going to do as much of that today as possible. We don't really have time to have you apply this in your sales call, but if you want to pull up ChatGPT in another browser and play along and try some of the prompts that we're going to be talking about and check out some of these tools, you're welcome to do that. We'll show you how to apply this in your space, but you're not going to become an AI ninja master in the next 60 minutes. We just don't have time for that. And so as you go through, consider this a continuous learning process. We're all going to have to up our game and learn how to use these tools daily and continue to push forward on this past the webinar time. So what we are going to cover today is how to get started with AI, how you can leverage AI right now in your sales process to help you sell more easily. And then we're going to cover some future forward thinking, some big tools and big announcements coming from a lot of big companies and some partners of Sandler. We're going to give you a sneak peek into some of the stuff that's coming in this year and the following years that you need to be prepared for as you build your teams and your companies around this, because all of these things are going to be huge. So let me introduce our panel here. Jordan Ledwein is he started a newsletter, AI for Sales, and he's one of our up and coming rock stars and tech evangelists in the sales network, and a fellow Sandler spawn. Both Jordan and I are sons of Sandler trainers, which puts us in a special place as being ingrained with a lot of Sandler skills from the time we were born. So Jordan, any opening thoughts from you?
No, just kind of excited to dive into this and kind of use some of the stuff that I've been looking at the last 6 months, year, and longer to share with people and hopefully provide some value. So excited to dive into the topic.
Love that. And Jody Williamson is author of The Contrarian Salesperson. He's a David H. Sandler Award winner, which that is our highest honor, which means he gives back to our network and embodies all of the Sandler values. He is a keynote speaker as our sales futurist at the Sandler Summit we had last month, and he was talking about AI and the sales experience. So Jody, welcome back to another webinar. We've done plenty of these webinars and podcasts together, but any opening thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to dive into it. And it's just, it's funny, right after the summit, I got on a plane the next day to California and spent 4 days at a kind of a conference where AI was most of the topic. So there's some exciting things that I learned out there in Silicon Valley area. It's like more than we're going to talk about today. It's just like strap yourself in.
Now, I wanted to open a quick question to the chat. All of you can introduce yourself in the chat as well and tell us which parts of the sales cycle do you think are most ripe for automation, humans are bad at, and which sort of things do you think that AI and robots are bad at or good at? So what do you think is ripe for automation? What do you think should be handled by AI, computers? And what do you think should be handled by human interaction? Lots of people chiming in on the chat there. It looks like most people are going for what should be done by AI. Emily, I like that. Prospecting, I think we all want to put that on the list for sure. Get somebody else to do that. Jordan, I'll let you chime in on a few things we have up here and just talk about maybe AI first. What are the advantages of AI? What are things that you think should be automated?
Yeah. So I think the best way to start thinking about this is, where are humans skilled? Where are our opportunities to outshine a computer, and vice versa, right? Where are computers maybe stronger than humans in certain things? And I think everything on this page is a good example of that. Maybe speed and efficiency of getting certain tasks done, or the consistency and objectivity that a computer or machine has compared to a human is very different. And we know that, accuracy, scalability, all these different things, computers can recognize patterns. There's a really cool story of how they taught a computer how to play chess. And within a day, that computer was able to learn how to play chess. By lunch, it was beating, top chess players in the world. And by the end of the day, it was outperforming the top chess player in the world. So it scales so quickly, and it can do it at such an accurate and consistent basis that I think there's some really cool areas for AI to be a huge advantage over what a human might be able to do. So I think that's a good place to kind of start on that.
Yeah, Jody, your opening thoughts here. What is AI best for?
On that story, this book here is a really good one. It's called The Age of AI. Came out the beginning of last year, and it tells that very story that Jordan's referring to about AlphaZero and Big Blue. I saw in the chat here. Big Blue was 1985, and that computer program was a chess program, but humans had to teach it all the moves. What happened with AlphaZero in 2017 with AI and large learning models and GPT is that it learned the rules of chess were given to the program, and it learned how to play without any human actually teaching it. And that's what happened within a day. And it's fascinating. So that's really where we're at, is the large language models and GPT is taking this place where it's really becoming way more intelligent.
I think it makes sense. Anything that is happening a lot, it has to do with data or reading insights on thousands of data points or big data that humans can't. We just can't keep more than like 150 things in our brain at a time, right? So if you have to crunch thousands of numbers, it makes sense to do that with AI. Also safety, if there are hazardous tasks like, exploring space or diffusing bombs and toxic materials, probably want robots doing that, not humans. But if we look at the human side of thing, now chime in the chat. What parts should humans do? What part of the sales process should humans handle? Contextual understanding. There's the funny language thing that we've known about in the English language for a long time. If you say the trophy doesn't fit in the suitcase, it's too big. Humans know which one is too big. Robots don't know whether the suitcase is too big or the trophy is too big, right? That there's weird contextual understanding and nuances to being a human and interacting with human that includes emotional intelligence, creativity, ethics, and morality decisions. There's really hard ones for computers when they're programming self-driving cars. It's if you have to choose between there's going to be an accident, you're either going to hit one person on a motorcycle or a bus full of school children, and the computer has to decide how do you program a computer to decide which way to swerve the car that it's in, or a train track. And there's really tough nuanced things that I think humans are going to be handling for a long time, if not forever. But there's something magical to our intuition and instincts as well. Jordan, on this one, what do you think is least likely to be automated by AI?
Well, I'm going to steal it from the chat because I think they're spot on. It's a word we use in Sandler a lot, and it's trust. It's building trust. It's the bonding rapport. It's that initial part of the sales process where you're engaging with someone and they're feeling you out, you're feeling them out to see, is this a relationship that makes sense? And I think, as funny as it is, there are AI tools that we'll talk about later that can help with this process. But I think there are certain things that, like we'd mentioned with the radiologist story earlier, it's just best coming from a human. We crave that human to human interaction. So I think there's that bonding rapport piece is a big one, that it's not going to get away from humans doing that piece.
Jody, anything else you'd add?
No, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's the human aspect of the interaction that we have to use as our value creation. My talk at the summit was based on that, is like, as more AI and technology comes in and buyers want to spend more time with technology and less with salespeople, what am I bringing to the table? And it is really that human connection that many people are craving, and that there's going to be a certain segment of buyers who are going to be craving that, and some are going to avoid it. And the more we can identify who are more, it's almost like mirroring and matching to their communication style. Some are going to want a technical kind of interaction, and some are going to want the human interaction. And in adapting to that is, I think, going to be a key aspect of salespeople, to know when I go technical, technology based, and when I go human based, and then seeking those people out.
Patrick just blew my mind. What if the buyers are AI? Then
I saw that
at bonding and rapport. It's a great point. It could definitely happen. Procurement robots will be calling you soon. But to answer this question, humans or robots, we reanimated Steve Jobs to give you the answer. No, it's just a clip from the 80s, but it has a great point. Let's hear from Steve Jobs.
Again, another analogy. There was an article in Scientific American in the early 70s which compared the efficiency of locomotion for various species of things on the planet. In other words, they measured how much energy it took for a bird to get from point A to point B compared with the energy it took a fish to get the same distance, and a goat and a person and all sorts of other things. And they ranked them. And it turns out the condor won. Condor was the most efficient, and man came in with a rather unimpressive showing about a third of the way down the list. Somewhat disappointing. But someone there had the insight to test the efficiency of man riding a bicycle. And man riding a bicycle was twice as good as the condor, all the way off the end of the list. And what it really illustrated was man's ability as a tool maker to fashion a tool that can amplify an inherent ability that he has. And that's exactly what we think we're doing.
So what you're seeing there is that salespeople with AI is the answer. It's not a fight between robots or salespeople here. It's how can we leverage both to their advantage to create the best sales experience possible. So we have a Sandler rule in our new book, leverage technology to engage, not to hide. There are bad ways to use technology, and there are good ways to use technology in the sales process. So let's look at some of these. How are we going to be able to use AI and sales to increase our productivity, personalize messages in a way that we've never been able to do before, customize our outgoing messages, our proposals, our things, improve our targeting with data and our marketing and our outreach to make sure we're talking with people that are ready, willing, and the right person at the right time is the best time for a salesperson to step in, and not wasting our human capital on people who are never going to buy from us. And all just greater speed and effectiveness and efficiency through the sales process. So again, we've already kind of debunked this, but salespeople are officially on the clock here, that there is going to be a battle between which roles and which things in your organization are going to be able to be automated and which ones aren't. A lot of big research here. I'm just going to blow through, but what we're going to get your thoughts and let everybody chime in here too. Recent survey said IT leaders said 84% believe this new generative AI like ChatGPT is a game changer. And Peter Diamanda said that people who are using AI are going to have a strong advantage. They will, the ones that aren't, may be out of business in the near future. Jody, you had a thought on this?
Yeah, I always paraphrase this one, say there's two kinds of salespeople at the end of the decade, those fully using AI and those that are out of sales. And I don't think it's the end of the decade.
Yeah. And the next one, by the end of 2023, this year, there will be more AI assistants in the world than actual people. Jordan, what do you think that means for us?
I mean, I think we kind of forget how much we actually already use AI. I mean, if you've ever used Siri or Amazon Alexa or any of these voice assistants, you've already used it in some way, shape, and form. It's already baked into a lot of the software we use, and it's just going to increase as time goes on. And it's definitely a interesting statistic. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and Jim had a good question there. Can AI really personalize? What we're saying, Jim, is AI may adapt messages to personas and things. We'll show you how to do that here. It may not be personal. You may still be the one delivering it, you as the human, but could it give you more information about the person that you're calling to, like a really good CRM system would? But but automating the AI and the research. So it's saying, hey, this person looked at these 3 pages of your website. They've been in this job for this long, and they requested your white paper on XYZ topic. Personalize your outreach and your cold call or your meeting with them based on those topics. And again, just scale. We're going to highlight these, but if you think you can avoid this, the answer is no. ChatGPT is the fastest growing movement in history for a company. So 100 million users in just 2 months. That means your customers are already using this. We're going to give some examples, but I think our message here to kick it off is this is just the next evolution of selling. We adapted to using the phone, and we had telemarketers, the internet and email came out, and we had email as our sales. We had virtual selling and social selling. And now we have AI selling, which is leveraging these AI tools to provide the insight and information we need to improve the buying experience, make it more valuable and time well spent for both the buyers and the sellers. So Jody, let's talk about how some of our customers are using this already, and what that means for us as salespeople.
Yeah, well, on this one, actually, I wanted to show, and I did a screencast on this instead of doing it live. So let's say this is the difference between Google and ChatGPT. This is a vacation, right? I'm going to do 10 days in Italy. What do I do? So then I start the scavenger hunt. I'm clicking on ads, and then like 2 hours later, I still don't know where to go. Same prompt, exact same words in ChatGPT. And instead of having to go to all the hyperlinks, ChatGPT is going to give me advice. And ChatGPT says, okay, here's a potential 10-day trip. Rome, Florence, and Venice is what you wanted. Let's talk about the first 3 days. Here's what we'd suggest you do. Here's the next 3 days. Here's the next 3 days. So let's say I put this in there and I'm like, you know what? I kind of want it by the day. That's kind of weird to do 3 days. So I did another prompt, as you'll see in the bottom. You see what I was typing in. Please give me a daily itinerary. And this is called prompt stacking, asking multiple questions. So it's like, okay, cool. Let's give me each day. And it gives me what I do in Rome for the first 3 days. And then I think I go to Florence. Yeah, I take the train over to Florence, up to Florence.
We like your style here, Jody, for sure. People are already chiming in on the chat. But what do you think this would mean if you're a travel agent?
Right. Right. Now I stopped it, I think, after this. But the next question is, give me the names of restaurants for each day. And then I say, I'm in Italy. Do I want to be calling for reservations? And maybe there's a language barrier. So give me a list of the restaurants by day and their websites. And it gives me all, you name it. It's like, are you kidding me? So yeah, I wouldn't want to be a travel agent.
And look, 70% of people over that prefer a rep for your experience. If they can solve it without talking to a person, we've all found it to be relatively inefficient. That a lot of salespeople don't listen. A lot of salespeople don't give you quick answers. A lot of salespeople cause more problems or give you other things than what you asked for. And so a lot of people prefer to just buy something on Amazon if you know what you're gonna buy. But if you don't, a lot of people are waiting until they run into obstacles. So 68% of buyers don't engage with the sales rep until the last stage of the buyer's journey, where they can't find the information, they didn't like what ChatGPT gave them, or they have some other sort of thing, problem or challenge that they need a salesperson to overcome. So the example I like to use here is building consensus. Sure, ChatGPT can give you background information on the products, but what if your CEO prefers one tool and the CFO has a different budget and the VP of sales has a third priority? Who's going to be the one to build consensus with those 3 people on the buying team and make a decision? Who can sort that out for them? Maybe not the AI at this point. Jordan, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just think these 2 statistics kind of drive home the fact that we don't have as much time with our buyers as we used to, right? The buyer's journey has changed. We can argue what percentage it's marketing versus sales and all that. But I think what's important is the time we spend is a lot more valuable. So we have to be a lot more valuable with the time we're spending with our prospects. And I think using AI to get additional insights on how to build trust more quickly and effectively, how to understand what pains we could potentially start to talk about, all these different things that we use in the Sandler world, but doing it in a much more effective way with all these additional insights that we haven't had before. And it's just making us more effective and more efficient with this smaller amount of time we now have with buyers.
I think what people are also missing when salespeople freak out about this is that buyers have this tool, but also, Jody, salespeople have this tool. There are other things that we can do to increase our knowledge. And
I think this one here, Mike, is a buyer's perspective. So, so hit pause for a second. So let me just set this up. So imagine there's a buyer who they have some kind of food product or something, and they buy packaging, corrugated packaging, to ship their food to grocery stores or whatever, right? So imagine I'm a buyer. I've worked with the current supplier. So put yourself in these shoes, right? You're the incumbent. So I'm a buyer. I have a current supplier, and my boss, the CFO, says, you know what? Let's shop around. Let's see if we have some other options. Things are tightening up financially here. Go out to the market. So I'm a buyer. I haven't bought corrugated before. So let's go to chat. I'm that buyer. Picture me at my desk. I'm like, okay, who are the major suppliers in the corrugated industry, right? And it gives me these companies. I'm like, huh. And then I say, please give me some more detail on this. I want a little bit more on each of these companies. So please give me, is it hanging up there, Mike? There we go. Please give me details on these companies. So then it says, okay, well, let me give you a little more detail on all these companies. So picture I'm a buyer. I'm educating myself. I could be a junior buyer. I could be 2 years out of school, and I am completely educated on the different suppliers I might want to get might want to get quotes from. So, is it hanging up there, Mike, a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my fault, Jody. Sorry, when I click to write in the chat, it stops the video.
So then look what I'm doing at the bottom. Picture I'm the buyer, right? I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Like, if I'm going to do shop around, what should I be looking for? Because I really don't know what to look for. So at the bottom, you can see I prompted in what factors should I consider when I purchase corrugated. And now it's giving me some buyer criteria as a buyer. So think of it. I'm a junior buyer. I've learned about the competition. I've learned about who I should go to. And I'm learning about the different criteria I should look for when I'm going to go buy corrugated packaging. Looks like it hung up there again, Mike.
Awesome. Yeah, that was it. We were going to move along here anyway. But what does that mean for salespeople? If you are if you're the salesperson and you are having a buyer who's already done all of that work, what does that mean for you?
Well, I'll even ask this question, Mike. If you're hiring someone, which junior buyer are you going to hire? The one that knows how to use ChatGPT and can essentially teach himself on his role and doesn't need to go to his senior management and say, hey, can you help me learn all this stuff? Or it's a differentiating factor that people can have now.
Yeah. And it's a differentiating factor for salespeople. So we want you to chime in the chat. What does this mean for you? What do you think all of this and ChatGPT and being able to do research or outlines or get this information that fast? What does that mean for salespeople? Here's what some of the research has shown. So top performers are 3 times more likely to be using AI. Just like Jordan said with the buyers, the top salespeople are already jumping in. They're leveraging this data, this information, these abilities to increase their sales. Companies that are using AI are using it right now, not necessarily to handle the rep interaction. We keep getting distracted by this, that AI will replace the salespeople. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, could AI help you understand the customer's needs like they just understood your product? Could you use it for better forecasting? Could you use it for visibility into tracking your reps activity so the manager doesn't have to take people's word for it that they made their calls? We got computers tracking the amount of activity and behavior to see if they're hitting their cookbook. Competitive intelligence, teaching you more about what the competitors are doing. Lead prioritization, use of your reps' time, making sure that they're using and talking to the right people at the right time. And then that personalization again, using it to adapt our pitches to have the best messages to the right people at the right time. So we're going to jump in now. How can you get started with this? But I think there are 3 big points here that we want to cover and wrap up final thoughts on where the state of the world is and why this is important. This was all kind of the setup and the pain building to really let you know that if you haven't jumped on this bandwagon yet, now is the time. Jordan, your thoughts on these 3?
Yeah, no, I think this is a good list, but everyone who's already on this webinar, you're already doing the first one, so just doing things like this, staying engaged with what's happening and making sure you're understanding what's new and what innovations are happening is the best thing you can do right now. So it's a good first step.
Jody, final thoughts on section 1 here?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's about digital fluency. And my formula for digital fluency is someone who has ambition and drive, plus they have tech curiosity, plus they have learning agility. They're going to do fine. They're going to have digital fluency. And digital fluency is a must-have, not a nice-to-have at this point.
All right. Now, I mentioned we're going to move along. If you have not used any AI, you might already be feeling overwhelmed. If you've already known about everything we've talked about already, we're going to take it to the next step here. And then section 3 is going to really be futuristic stuff, things that I promise you don't even know exist yet, because I've been getting sneak peeks from some of our partners behind the scenes like HubSpot and Zoom Info and others, Octus IQ, that haven't even launched products yet. We're going to talk about those here before we wrap up. But now it's time to jump into what can you do as a sales rep or a sales leader right now to use AI in your sales. So I think a great question for all of you to chime in the chat is, how are you already using AI? What have you been using these tools for? Where has it been helping you in the last 12 months? We want to hear from you. Maybe there's 3 levels. One is you're using chatbots, maybe you have some search history things. You're using ChatGPT a little bit to help with writing emails. Level 2 is you're really getting into analytics and other things, and you're getting data back from your CRM, or you have some sort of AI built into your stuff. And level 3 is the deep cuts. You're building AI, you've had your own systems, it's integrated, and you're getting really crazy insights and research from your customer activity at scale. And it's changing the game for you. Love to hear what you thought. And you guys are seeing a lot of these in the chats. We mentioned you should be doing it, leveraging technology to hide. But Jody, I'll let you take first crack at this one. Anything you want to highlight from the chat, or anything that you think salespeople should be doing right now?
No, there's a lot of it's impressive. A lot of these things in here. I mean, there's a lot of progress that's been made already. I love it. Love it. It's great.
Jordan, anything you saw?
No, I'm thinking the same thing. It's just exciting to see people just starting somewhere. You're not going to know how to use it until you start trying. I told a lot of people about ChatGPT 3 months ago, and they came back to me a week ago and they said, "Wow, this thing's incredible." I was like, if you would have started 3 months ago, it would have been even more incredible. But just starting
I saw an
somewhere.
easy one in there, low-lying fruit. I'm a little dyslexic, so spell check and grammar check is incredible. I would always tell people it's selling, not spelling. So if I can craft a sales message and have somebody else spell it grammatically correct, hey, that's not a bad start. That's using the best of technology and humans together. Grammarly for the win, Richmond. I totally agree. All right, Jody, let's talk about how we write good prompts and how we start using this for research as a salesperson.
Okay, before you hit the play one, here's the setup on this one. Picture yourself getting a lead from a website, or some kind of lead comes in. It's an industry you don't know. So one of the ways to use this is to research an industry. So in this case, I just put something that I didn't know anything about. The earth moving equipment industry, right? So I'm like, okay, before I make this call, I want to understand the business. So it gives me some cool stuff here. And then I'm like, okay, I read this and I'm like, tell me about these companies listed here. And then it gives me a bit more on who the players are in the earth moving equipment industry. So if I want to have a business conversation with a lead, think how quickly I can educate myself on understanding an industry here. So I'm understanding who their competition might be. I understand their placement in their space in the industry. And let's say I'm getting a call from a small manufacturer, I can reference Hitachi or Caterpillar or whoever else it might be. So number one use, I would suggest for everyone here, you get a lead, you want to call in a new vertical, go to ChatGPT, just say, teach me about this industry. Okay, that's the first one. Okay. Now, let's say I want to get pains, and I'm like, okay, I want a pain commercial. Let's see if I can figure out what some of the challenges that these companies may be having today. So I always use the term, what are the biggest challenges? This typically gives me the basis for a 30 or 60-second commercial, because you'll see these points in here are typically going to be pain points. So now I can start weaving it into a word track like Sandler. Hey, Mike, some of the issues we see is people frustrated with environmental regulations and they're concerned. So I can now start creating very quick pain commercials before I make the call, or at least get a sense of what they might be by having ChatGPT be because AI for me is not artificial intelligence. It's amplifying intelligence. It's making me smarter. It's an extension of my brain. It's a co-pilot for me as a salesperson. That's my practical application.
And Dom telegraphed our pass here. We can use this to build scripts like an elevator pitch, right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And here's another one. Let's say I'm calling a sustainability director regarding their packaging. I want their biggest concerns. And once again, what's their biggest challenges? I now have the basis for a commercial calling into a specific title of decision maker in a company. And it might not be perfect, but it's a first draft. And I just know through dealing with this industry, these are pretty good. This would totally give me the basis to do prospecting. And now I can start doing emails off these pain points. I can do text off these pain points. I can create a video off these pain points. I can do a LinkedIn post. And so that's where I can go with that. Here's another one. How many of you have trade shows? So we have trade shows coming up. So here's a really good way to promote trade show. So it's like I have writer's block, right? It's like, oh, what am I going to say about the trade show booth? Okay, write a post for LinkedIn about our upcoming booth at PAC Expo. And I look at that, I'm like, that's way too long for a LinkedIn post. Let me do another prompt, shorten it to 2 sentences. There we go. That's kind of cool, right? So one of the things this does for salespeople, it helps you overcome the blank page effect. And we've all been there, right? Where we're like trying to think of what to write. We're trying to respond to an email, trying to write a proposal. It's like, holy, what am I going to do? This is usually that prompt that gets the flywheel started. It gets me out of procrastination and overly thinking things through, right? Here's another one. Many on this call have probably had to pass along a price increase. So it's like, where do I start with this one, right? So I go to ChatGPT and say, can you help me with this one? Because I really don't want to send this one to anybody. Now, it might not be perfect, but it's a pretty good first draft that gets me out of writer's block, right? And then I say, you know what? Let's give people the reason, right? The reason for the price increase is a couple things. It's we have increased material costs, but we also have, what's the second one I put in here? Oh yeah, so labor issues, okay? So now I wanna give people a bit more of a rationale behind why we're raising prices. And now it rewrites it, putting in the reasons for the price increase. Once again, I don't know how you all are, but for me to go through the thinking to do this is hours. And it's like 15 seconds, but it's about the prompt. I have to know what questions to ask ask ChatGPT, right? Now, here's another one. Let's say you get a request from a customer saying, lower our price. Okay, well, how do I respond to that one? Okay, well, ChatGPT, help me write a response to a customer who's saying we want a price decrease. Like, I don't want to do that. So once again, I go to ChatGPT, my first draft gets me out of writer's block. I put this in and, at least now I can put it in my own voice. Now I can make it human. It's kind of clinical. It's kind of boring, but it's a first draft. It's like having a copywriter sitting next to me all day, 24/7. So that's why I like.
One of the things I want to chime in on here is what's interesting is I think it levels up what the salesperson is doing, almost to the point of being a sales coach or a sales manager. So now you have your own personal assistant. You have an AI assistant that you say, write the first draft of this email for me. It brings it back and you go, you know what? That's good, but add some more pain points in there or change the sentence. And you are tweaking it now as the manager of your sales assistant rather than being the one who's writing it all from scratch. And so it's leveling up. It's not replacing your job. It's letting you level up to the hard parts and saving a ton of time there.
And my assistant Suli, if I say, hey Suli, would you write something? And then I ask her a second time, would you rewrite this? By about the third time, she's losing patience. And I've discovered that ChatGPT does not lose patience. I can ask ChatGPT 50 times and I won't get the eye roll that Suli will give me. Like, Jody, really? You're going to ask me? Right? So I love it. Hi, Suli.
Jordan, I know you have a whole bunch of tips on prompts and you use this a lot too. What would you recommend or what do you have to add here?
Yeah, I think what Jody shared is great. And actually something that Jody had mentioned to us earlier in one of our discussions, kind of prepping for this, was one of the rules that we've talked about in Sandler a lot, but the rule of 3+. And it's exactly what he's talking about, right? It's knowing how to communicate and ask the question. So going back and not just taking the first response you get. I saw Faye or someone said, that response looks a little bit long. And so that's where I think AI and humans work best together is you can say, hey, this is a little bit long. Let me go back and say, hey, can you shorten this up? Or can you take out these sentences here? And you're now working together. It's just making it that much more efficient and effective with your time, your resources, and everything. So
that's a great point. Yeah.
Love it. Now, I think This
No,
one
it's-
already exists here with the presentation, Jody, but
Yeah.
finish your thought and then tell us, like,
No,
imagine
no,
a world where you have done all this. Now you go, okay, I want to create a PowerPoint presentation for my meeting I just scheduled.
Yeah. So just I want to add one thing that Jordan said. It's like, if those Sandler veterans on this call, you know that the quality of the sales meeting is basically based on the quality of the questions you ask. And it's the same thing with ChatGPT. If I ask really good questions and follow-up questions, and I keep refining it with Rule of 3+ and Iceberg, I'm going to get way better answers. So just get your head around. It's very much like a sales call. If I ask really smart questions, I'm going to get way better responses. So you'll learn that over time. So this one here is kind of cool. And this is a little bit more of the future, but it exists now. So let's say I have a company and I'm trying to get funding. My company is Cloud Hub. It's a new flying bus. And I go into this prompt and I say, write me a proposal. It is writing the proposal right now. It's coming up with all these bullet points. It's coming up with artwork. It's coming up with copy. And look how fast it did that. It wrote the entire proposal. Then I go in and say, you know what, here's a prompt. Show me a few layout options. I don't like this layout. And then it gives me some layouts and I can look through them. I say, you know what, I kind of like that one. That's kind of a cool one. So let's go through. I don't like these words, rewrite it, right? So I click rewrite. I don't like that one, do this one. Do one, there we go. I like that. Let's keep that copy. So it's now, right now, look, this is a cool one. Let's go to page 1. Oh, let's add a page on sustainability. There's nothing on sustainability. We got to include that. Came up with the artwork and the copy. Then I go to the title page and I'm like, it's kind of boring. Add a background of a cloudy landscape. And now it finds a video that's moving and it adds the landscape as part of the deck, right? I almost said PowerPoint, but it's not, but as part of the deck. So that's where we're at right now. And that's only getting smarter.
We had 7 people ask which tool this is. Jody, they want this one right.
Is it Tome? Cameron has that right. You know, it goes through so many.
I believe it's Tome.
Is it? Yeah.
Tome. And
Yeah,
you know, one thing I
TOME.
want to say is I think that while right now there's a lot of these tools being created and they're, you know, kind of one-offs that you have to go and subscribe to or purchase, it's going to start getting woven in, and it already is starting to get woven into tools you use every day, like Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint or Gmail or different things like that, to where it's just going to become a part of the things that you're already used to doing. You're now just going to have this little AI assistant sitting right there.
Yep.
I saw another one. Obviously, I think when people's first reactions to those prompts that it wrote in those emails and LinkedIn posts, Jody, were those aren't Sandlerized. It's breaking several Sandler rules.
Yes.
And it sounds like a traditional salesperson. We would all say yes, right? This is aggregated data from everybody in the world, and there's a lot of bad salespeople out there, which means it's going to write a lot of bad emails. But I wanted to highlight what you said. If we ask it 2 or 3 times, it doesn't care. It's not your assistant, and you don't have to send this without looking at it at all. You just say, hey, ChatGPT, rewrite that email, but this time make it shorter, make it in 5 sentences, make sure you include the pain points first, and highlight this unique selling proposition that's important to this buyer. And it just rewrites it again in 30 seconds. So if you don't like the answer, it doesn't have feelings. You're not going to hurt its feelings. You can say, that freaking sucks. Do it again.
Well,
and it's not going to take it personally.
Let me give one more. And this is just in the last few weeks, I've discovered this one. You can type a prompt in that says, role play a conversation between me and my customer. I'm delivering a 4% price increase. As the customer, I want you to play the part as being somewhat hostile and angry. And then I hit enter and then I watch the role play. Now, it's never perfect, but what I've found it's doing for people is it's starting to walk them into the call. So as they see the role play, they're kind of walking into the future. And maybe it's not the perfect role play script, but they start thinking way more proactively what's going to happen. So homework for everyone here is start putting in role play and then put a scenario in. And then you can say, be a more difficult prospect, be an easier prospect, do less features and benefits, incorporate pain points. But you'll see, and you'll get way smarter, way faster with that as your co-pilot.
Jordan, I want to get your thoughts here too, because you've been using it a lot. What are some of your favorite prompts, or what are the ways that you ask it to tweak, maybe to change a personality or something else? Any recommendations here?
Yeah, one small tip that I like using is asking it to act as someone. So, you know, our ideal client's a VP of sales for various different industries. So I'll say, you know, act as a VP of sales for X industry and explain your top 3 challenges. So giving it numbers and specific numbers, and it will provide that amount of challenges, right? So different things like that. But the main one is act as, to have it put itself in someone else's shoes, because that's something as humans, we can sometimes have a hard time sympathizing or understanding someone else's point of view. So I think act as is a great one. And then giving it more specific things and understanding how to talk to it, right? The more you use it, the better you're going to get at it. It's just like Google. If you know how to Google something, you're going to get a better response than if you just are typing in a couple letters or a couple words. So same concept here.
I love that act as. And yes, John, we were talking about ChatGPT here is you can write it to different personalities. So you can say, okay, act as a dominant personality that's a VP of sales, or you can say, take my email that I wrote because I'm a high S and give me the too long didn't read version for a D. Make this 3 sentences. And it'll take your whole proposal and shorten it down to 3 sentences that are most impactful for somebody who doesn't have the time to read a whole email. So I think it's amazing what you can do. Don't underestimate the copy and pasting one here too. So I'll just highlight one of my favorites is taking something I've already written and shortening it to a few sentences, or take this blog article that I wrote and write me a better title for this, or write a subject line for my email that will get opened, and asking it small things as well as the big things. So again, I think people make the mistake of trying to have it do everything. Like I just want it to say, hey, sell my product for me. And then it goes and does that. And that's not where we are. And that's not really what we want it to do, right? We want to give it these little assistant tasks of improving the stuff that we're already doing. Jody, you look like you have something to add there.
No, I'm just looking at these answer as Tony Robbins, Jay Abraham. I had someone yesterday on a call say, Can we put like an actor in there? And someone said, Robert De Niro. We put, and someone said, how about Samuel Jackson? And we put answer as Samuel Jackson. It was very direct. This is great, right? But I think the point is you got to have fun with it, because you start playing with it. And even though it's humorous, you start seeing the possibilities. You're like, whoa, like, I can't believe it just did that. It just wrote it like Samuel Jackson. Like, how did that happen? Right. And
so fast. So I think we've covered several of these, but give us the final thoughts here, Jody, on ideation, creation, automation, the ways that we can use AI to improve our sales.
I think that the lowest hanging fruit is for preparation of sales meetings or conversations, and going through and asking the questions like before, asking about an industry, ask about their issues, ask about their future-based challenges, ask about who the competition is. 5 minutes will give you a wealth of knowledge, enough to have a smart initial conversation, not the classic. So my first place to go for people new to this is just use it for prep, pre-call prep.
Love that. I think from there you get further, and the one we're talking about here, I think least is the automation. There is things that you have to do. Anything that you have to do dozens, hundreds of times, let a robot do that. If it's the same thing 100 times and we just need to tweak the subject line or tweak the who it's to or whatever, let a robot do that. Anything you find boring and monotonous should probably be automated, which takes us to our final section, the final frontier, the future forward thinking of stuff that's coming, and where do we think all of this will be heading in the very near future. So number one is sales automation. There's a lot of things that you can do, like summarizing a call. You can have an AI assistant join your Zoom meeting, take notes for you, summarize the call, and then remind you about follow-up. Schedule it in your CRM or send you an email and be like, hey, I know my phone has been doing that. Somebody asked you a question on text 5 days ago and you haven't responded. LinkedIn is doing that now. I got a LinkedIn message that somebody asked me a question and I didn't reply to. And after 3 days, it says, hey, moron, you forgot to do this, and gives me that reminder that I need. Prospecting outreach, several people chimed in on that. That's a lot of stuff we don't love doing. It becomes repetitive. Forecasting and reporting is a huge one that humans are very bad at. We all get happy years and we think that every deal is going to come in, or we put everything in that 90-day plus because someday we're going to win it. Computer's probably a little bit more accurate on predicting where those are actually coming from. And lead management, data cleansing, we have a hard time keeping track of, again, things that we don't see. So if a sales manager we were working with leaves the organization, we may or may not get a notice about that until we get their out of office reply that they're no longer at the company. So if we can have our AI systems monitoring contact information, finding cell phone numbers, doing a lot of other things that we can't do, or we can't do very easily or efficiently, I think those are all big wins. Jordan, I know you use some of these, like the AI call summary. Do you have some thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, I have a few tools in this category that I love. I mean, I can't tell. It's probably been 6 months since I've had to take notes on a virtual meeting, and that's something that was a huge part of my job. So being able to use a tool, and I saw it actually mentioned in the chat earlier, like Fathom, or there's hundreds of tools out there, multiple tools out there that can, like Mike was saying, automatically record your meeting, push the AI summary of your meeting straight to your CRM, and you don't have to sit there and take notes and kind of be half in the meeting and half taking notes. It just changes the dynamic too. And then from the prospecting sense, I'm trying out different things, trying out new things and seeing what works and what doesn't. So I'm trying a tool called Connected to try and expand my LinkedIn network. I used to go and manually connect with people, and I knew who I was connecting with and why I was connecting with it. So why not use AI to focus on my target audience and go and grow my LinkedIn network while I can focus on things that I need to be doing? So I think there's some really cool tools in here. And of these 4 categories, there's probably thousands of tools that fall into these categories. So it can be a little overwhelming, but I think just figuring out what you're doing all the time that could be done by AI and save you some time is a great place to start there.
And Jordan, you mentioned
Fathom, Otter, Chorus,
yep.
Gong, ton of these.
Yep.
Great examples.
Yep.
Now we jump into one that I think is a big one, and we have a partnership with, is that HubSpot is doing some really cool things with lead scoring. And there are other account-based marketing, ABM strategies, where if you really want to know what's going on with an account, it's sort of like a caller ID for your website or their marketing activity. So at the bottom here, this screen isn't very readable, and it's not necessarily important. What I think you need to know is they get green points, like they might get 3 points for opening and reading your email, but they might get minus points as a lead score if they don't click on the link that you put in the email, or they only opened it for a short amount of time, 5 seconds instead of 10 plus seconds or longer. And you can set up all of these different scoring properties, or have AI look at all of these things and then tell you which leads are most likely to close for you this week. So imagine you have a huge list or a large target account or a big territory, and every day you just open up your CRM system and it says, here's the 10 most important people for you to call today to either close a deal or to get somebody into your funnel. These are the ripest leads on the vine for you to pick out of everything the internet knows about your customers and prospects. I think that's a pretty cool thing. If I was an outgoing BDR rep, I would say, load me up the ones that are most likely to take my call, that are ready to buy, and most likely to set a meeting because they know who I am and why I'm calling. And then it can also tell you all the information. So here's the actions they took. Here's the white papers they downloaded and their pain points. That to me is a game changer. Jody, you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, and that goes back to a part of the earlier conversation. When does the human part come in? When do we come into actually using many of the things we talk about in Sandler, like reading, bonding and rapport, upfront contract, discovering pain, getting them to open up, getting them motivated to make a change. I mean, so if I can have people that are more pre-qualified and pre-motivated, more likely to take my call, now all the Sandler learning that many on this call are familiar with now becomes even more relevant. And I don't have to sift through all the nonsense. I have people that are way more pre-motivated and pre-qualified to buy. And now we can have a better conversation than some arm wrestling match with a cold lead.
Now, the other cool thing about this is you can do that with the deals that you're currently working. So we have a partnership with Deal IQ. This is a product you'll be hearing about from Sandler. And I didn't want to make it one big sales pitch or go too much into any one tool, because this webinar is about giving you an awareness of stuff that is possible. There are 27 different markers that will give you an increase in whether a deal is likely to close or not. And again, you can't see all this stuff on here, but who's the buyer? Who are the influencers? Who are you competing against? Why you'll win, why you'll lose, what decisions will be made, who attended what meetings, how engaged were they in those meetings, and interesting things that if you have a lot of green check marks, you might get a nice score. We got a 46% in the corner. If you have some red in here that we haven't confirmed their ROI or what this means to them or uncovered their pains, we might get a lower score on this. So this is accurate, AI analyzed, I think independently verified information on whether this deal will close and what our chances of winning it are, which we've never had before. We've always had to take the salesperson's word for it. Got one, boss. They're hot. They're going to buy. They're super excited. They told me what their budget was and everything. We're ready to go. And we have no idea whether that's going to close or when it's going to close. And now we have objective data, a third party looking at it and saying, based on everything they've clicked on, everything they've engaged with. Sometimes it's even sentiment analysis from a call. So Gong can listen to your call and tell you how excited their voices sounded in those calls, or when they turned off and you brought up the price, or where in the call they brought up the price, early or late in the meeting, and analyze all of these triggers to tell you more accurate data of who will close and when. Jordan, you've kind of used lead scoring and know about some of this stuff too. Any thoughts here on how or why we use these?
Yeah, so I think for a long time, sales has just been such an industry or profession that's based off the gut, right? Your gut feel. Like, I think this one's going to close. I think I got, the right decision makers or the right influencers. I think I got them all engaged. And you might be able to recognize some patterns. Oh, when I get 3 people in the C-level in this meeting, I have a better chance of closing, right? And that's great when you can start to recognize some of these patterns, but AI can recognize all of these patterns, and it can use the data and give you a data-backed approach that says, hey, when you have this, and the stars align, this deal's closing, because that's just the data. And I think it's just so much more accurate and more repeatable and consistent than the gut instinct that we've had to rely on for such a long time, that we're good at relying on. But I think it can be used it can be used with AI, right? We can use that gut instinct that we have as humans with all this data that we now have to empower that gut instinct.
That's what came up for me, Jody, this is that art and science of sales. We're using the science and we're leveraging the technology. The salesperson is still going to call and confirm the ROI with the buyer, because that's the missing piece we have. But we're leveraging and monitoring these 1,000 things that we can't do as a human with the technology. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we've heard the term for many years, happy ears, right? That Dumb and Dumber clip where it's like, what are my chances? 1 in a million. Yeah, saying I got a chance, right? So it's like, I've had happy ears as much as any salesperson, and I think what this does, the deal intelligence, is it takes my emotion out of it. It takes, I got a good feeling about this boss, into like, okay, maybe, but objectively it's a 46. But here's the good news. It's telling us what to do, right? And now my relevance of a salesperson is even higher if I look at it from that perspective.
We also announced a new partnership with Humantic AI at our Sandler Summit a month ago, just over 30 days ago. And this is buyer intelligence. What can we learn? The buyers are learning about our products. What can we learn about our individual buyers? And how can we personalize and craft our messages to hit and resonate harder with these people? So not just personality overviews. There is some of that. There's a lot of tools on the market you can use that'll do this. But what is everything that we know about our buyers, and how can we learn more about them and their organizations so that we can respond in a way that they are? So do they prefer a text message or an email, or should I reach out to them in the morning or the afternoon? Getting all of this intelligence to make it more likely that we connect and have a good conversation. Jordan, I thought you had a thought on this one too.
Yeah, I personally use buyer intelligence tools every day. I don't know what I'd do without them at this point. It's crazy to think that I used to live without them. We have our largest client now thanks to a buyer intelligence tool that gave us some great insight on building a proposal and some ways that our buyer or our prospect at the time might want to see a proposal and the different options that he'd be interested in. And it helped us close one of the biggest deals that we've had in a long time. So we use it all the time, and we use it because it works. And having this insight, we don't make, cold calls or, cold outreach. It's warm, because we can have a predicted personality of this person. And it's a lot different conversation going into it than it is completely cold.
Yeah, it's incredible. And last one I wanted to highlight here is we have a partnership with Zoom Info. They recently bought Chorus, which is like a Gong or another call recorder and doing voice and conversation analytics. But monitoring all of your stats and giving you this deal mapping concept of better understanding your buyer's decision-making process. So Zoom Info has the most information in the world about who's working where and what their hierarchy and structures are. And they can now give you artificial intelligence into, well, you've talked to these people in this department, but you don't know about these other decision makers over here. And based on the people on the call, here's the ones that had positive sentiment and the ones that had negative sentiment. So down here in the corner, you'll see Amy was in green, but Lee is in red. We haven't captured his attention yet in this call. And some of these are post, some of these can be real time that you can see when people are tuning out in the call and say, you know what, we better stop and ask a question. We better find out what's going on here. This person just turned from green to red. Those stoplights in the future, this product hasn't even been released yet, so I can't even tell you what it's called. But basically, it's called deal mapping and deal intelligence that I think is going to be incredible in the future. Wait for those call outs and think about as you build your teams and your sales processes, how do we get these into our calls more? So we're down here to our final thoughts. We've got about 4 minutes left. How do you see AI affecting your sales role in the future? Chime that into the chat. And Jody, I'll start with you here. Is future forward thinking, when you think about the lead scoring, deal mapping, deal intelligence, personalization, or just where all of this will go 5-10 years from now, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any technology, whether we go back to fire and the wheel or the printing press or the the internal combustion engine or the microchip or the internet. I mean, you name it, a technology that's going to change. It's either going to have people come along for the ride and adapt and embrace and ultimately look back and then say some form of, how did I ever get by without this? I'm so much better. And then it's going to have a whole other group that's going to not be to that level and they're going to be washed out. And I just encourage everyone here to be curious. If you're curious about this, you'll be fine. It's when we become tech phobia is really the biggest challenge right now for people.
Jordan, what do you think? Final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, again, this is a great first step, just learning more about it and then just dipping your toe in the water, trying this AI tool or that AI tool. Don't use all of them. You don't have to completely AI your entire process and overwhelm yourself, but just try one or two things here and there, or just learn about it. And if I can make a shameless plug, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I do have a newsletter that I call the AI Sales Guy that just has different easy ways to kind of dip your toe in the water and just try and figure out, how do I start to use this or at least stay up to date with what's going on.
Love that. And Paul kind of hit it with me. I think my final thoughts are, again, it's not about AI replacing humans. It's about augmenting what humans are doing and increasing our ability to be more human. So I don't know about you guys. I'm an I personality. Obviously, I host these webinars and the podcast for Sandler and everything because I love human connection. And so it's not about replacing my human connection with a robot. That's not what we're trying to do. But spreadsheets are my kryptonite. Excel drains my energy faster than anything with my personality. So if I can have AI do all the spreadsheets and I get to do all the human interaction and I get all the warm hugs at the Sandler Summit, then I'm a very happy human and we're leveraging the best of what both worlds have to offer. So a couple of things. Jody had an amazing presentation at the Sandler Summit. You can still get the recordings for that. It's $250 if you go to sandler.com/summit. You can get all of our thought leadership. We have the sessions from Humantic AI and from Octus IQ with the deal mapping recordings and stuff in there. So a lot more information already available. We'll have a lot more coming up for you as well. There's blogs on the website. I've interviewed Jordan on the podcast. I've interviewed Jody on the podcast to talk about these. So go to look up How to Succeed podcast in your favorite app. Lots more information. And then as always, talk to your Sandler trainer. We have amazing people out there, over 400 trainers in 200 locations. As I mentioned earlier, all around the world in multiple languages. So get the help you need. If you're struggling with this, if we gave you a lot to think about, this isn't the end. Join us in a conversation. We'll help you and our human side of things take this to the next level in individual conversations. Appreciate it. You guys did it. You made it to the end. I'm going to stop the recording. We'll hang out and follow up with any questions. We'll go a little overtime on this one if you want. So stick around. We'll do that next.